Hey everybody, welcome to A Mighty Blaze. I'm Jenna Blum, one of the co-founders of The Blaze, and today I'm here with one of my favorite people in the entire universe, Sarah McCoy. Welcome back to The Blaze, Sarah, my soul sister.
Hello. Hi. Hello, everyone. And of course, you, but we've just been chatting, and I feel like I've been with you for like 2 weeks now because
We're
we've
always
been more
together.
stuff and we're always together. So in
We're
spirit,
always
right?
together in spirit and also in voice notes, which we'll tell you about. We're like Jefferson and Adams, like leaving little voice notes for each other, except with new technology.
Long one. Yes.
Long ones. So before we dive into all of that, welcome back to the Blaze. If you are a repeat Blazer, thank you for bringing your light to our Blaze. And if this is your first time here, welcome. We are a team of 30 creative volunteers dedicated to connecting authors and their new books with readers. We started in COVID and now we're way beyond that, obviously, and happily. We are on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Substack, on Twitter, which I refuse to call X. We are ubiquitous. If you like what you see here, please consider giving us a like or a follow. And please sign up for our newsletter, which is www.mightyblaze.com, so you never have literary FOMO ever again. No more FOMO. Nobody likes that. And without further ado, today we're going to talk about Sarah McCoy's latest novel, Whatever Happened to Lori Lovely? So Sarah, I'm going to read your bio first in case some of you are new to Sarah as well as the Blaze. Sarah, you ready for your bio?
Ready as I'm ever going to be. Go for it.
Buckle up, girl. You. Sarah McCoy is the New York Times, USA Today, and internationally best-selling author of the novels Mustique Island, Marilla of Green Gables, The Mapmaker's Children, The Baker's Daughter, and The Time It Snowed in Puerto Rico. She has taught English and writing at Old Dominion University. I know they love your book stack. That's the first time we've seen the floating author book stack on Blaze, and we should have them every time. That's so fantastic.
This is my weightlifting for the day, too. And now I'm done.
We have our books. That is such a metaphor. And Sarah has also taught at the University of Texas at El Paso. She lives in North Carolina with her husband, Doc B, so handsome and lovely, and her dog Gilly and her kitten Tutu. And you are back. I'm going to start off with this. I'm going to go off script, girl. Sarah and I are old friends. You will soon find out. This is going to be salty today, people. It'll be a salty one. Sweet and spicy at the same time. So you're back in the Mick farmhouse now, right? Like you are just back from 2 weeks of tour. Tell us about that. How was it to introduce Lori Lovely to the world?
So everyone's getting me live and like raw back from this book tour. So I'm telling you straight as it really is and how I feel about it. I was trepidatious about book tour. I always am because I'm such a homebody. And so I was like, oh God, I'm going to be on the road, a different city every day, 2 events a day. I'm going to be exhausted. And I had so much fun. I had so much fun, and it's because of all the readers that came out, all the booksellers, all the bookstores, all my friends like you. Jenna was with me. For those who don't know, she was with me in Boston, and that was for the launch actual day, September 2nd. And I've told her over and over, and I have proclaimed to the world that that day was so magical because of you, Jenna, because of you and because of the people that showed up at an unlikely story to just like dance underneath the twinkling lights and be with me. And I couldn't have put this book into the world without you. And that set the pace is what I mean. Like then, even though I was away from home, because I get homesick really easily. So even though I was away from home, I didn't feel like lost, like sad, like missing that connection to a home place, because I felt like every city I went to, people were welcoming me in this book like I was home. So
it's so sweet.
It was really beautiful, and it was unlike any other tour I've ever done. Every single day was incredible and magical, and I loved it. So to answer your question, I'm back now and I'm not exhausted. I'm not depleted of energy. I'm actually energized by this book. And I think it's this book. I think it's just there's something about this book. So, and the way that it's been met and been embraced by readers. So I'm home, yes, and I love it. And I love being here with my cat and my dog. But I had fun. I had such a good time on tour. So thank you. Thank you to everyone out there who came out, showed up, who bought this book, who have been cheering me on. I love you all. You've done it for me. So thank you.
It's so lovely. I love this. I love catching up 2 weeks after I last saw you at Unlikely Story in Plainville, Massachusetts, which is one of the most enchanted bookstores ever. It's just an amazing, amazing place. And I feel as though, like, when Thoreau and Emerson used to meet after a long absence, they would say to each other, "What have you learned since we last met, Thoreau? What have you learned since we last met, Emerson?" And so I feel like you can be Thoreau or Emerson, you pick. But I feel like I'm saying, how has it been for you since we last met? And I'm so gratified to hear that readers are embracing Lori Lovely the way it was intended. So for those of you who have not yet read Whatever Happened to Lori Lovely, like, Sarah, can you introduce... Hi, bro. Can you introduce the book to readers? What is it about?
Wow. I could actually talk like 30 minutes about this. So I need
to thumbnail, because I have more questions.
Yeah, my
audience does too.
Where do you want me to start here? But it is
plot. Basic plot. Yeah.
The plot. So it is the story. It begins in 1968 with a young 18-year-old, 19-year-old girl who wants to be an actress, and she wants to be famous. And she has all these dreams about her future, like most young girls at 18, 19 years old. And she is catapulted to stardom, and she gets everything she dreamed of by being cast as Juliet in a worldwide successful adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, the musical. So she becomes Juliet to the world, and she has everything. And then through a series of events that happened, once she's at the pinnacle, sort of having everything, she realizes that having everything doesn't equate to fulfillment, doesn't equate to lasting joy or peace. And she then seeks, for reasons I can't give away because I'll give away the plot. I can't give you the plot, but for reasons that happen and some twists and turns in her life, she seeks inner fulfillment, and she leaves Hollywood at a very young age, 20, and she joins a Benedictine cloistered abbey in Connecticut. So from Hollywood to Connecticut. And then it's a dual narrative. So we have that storyline of Lori Lovely, and it's set with, as a sort of a counterbalance, with Lou Tibbet in 1990, who is Lori Lovely's niece, and she has come to the abbey to interview her aunt, so that way she can write her senior thesis and graduate from college. And also because she has always had her own sort of inklings about the mystery of her aunt leaving Hollywood and going to the abbey. And so she is there to get the truth as a history major. And we talked a lot about this at an Unlikely Story at our event, but that's something I'm perpetually curious about in my own life and in all my books, is what is history? What is truth? Who's telling it changes how it's perceived, the context of it. All these things go into history. We're always sort of molding our own history, even depending on who we're telling it to and how we want them to view us in this moment. And so similarly, it's a cat and mouse sort of game of unraveling this mystery of Lori Lovely and why she left Hollywood for the abbey when she was at the top of her game and very young. And that's an interesting dynamic to me. How much is Lori Lovely giving her niece, and how much is she holding back because they're her own dark secrets? How much is Lou telling her aunt about what she already knows, and how much is she fishing for more answers? And so they're kind of doing this dance back and forth through the chapters, and that's how it progresses forward. 1990, 1968, 1990, 1968. So that I try to stick to the narrative structure there. But
yeah, that was perfect. When you started this, did you know that you were going to do dual timeline, or did you start with one woman or the other? And by the way, there's a great mystery at the heart of this, which is what did happen to Lori Lovely, and why did she leave Hollywood? Why did she leave what most of us aspire to, which is, you know, worldwide fame and recognition and money and you know, the love of strangers? Who doesn't want that? To become a nun. So if you want to know, you have to buy the book. But in lieu, you give us the character who is the seeker, and she's the great kind of foil to get this information, which is such a smart thing to do. Did you know that you were going to have her in the book initially, or were you really following Lori's story?
I love a dual narrative. I love them. If for those of you who've read my other books, my backlist, let's see, The Mapmaker's Children, The Baker's Daughter, they're both dual narratives set like this. And actually, Mystique Island, I initially wrote as a dual narrative, as a contemporary, and then the Mystique Island story set in 1970s. So that is how I'm wired. I'm actually wired that way, in that I need something in a contemporary setting to tie me to the past and make it relevant to me today, almost like a fun, like a bunch of mirrors that are reflecting each other and reflecting time periods and showing me a little bit about myself, even while I'm looking behind me. So that's really what Lou is. Lou is, like you said, and I've discussed with you before, she is a seeker. Is she kind of me? Yeah, but all the characters are kind of me because they're coming through my perspective as the writer. So Lou is, she's sort of an agnostic. She's sort of a questioner. She wants to know more about her aunt, but she also wants to know about that sort of spiritual component of it, because it confounds her and she doesn't understand it. And by the way, I'm not Catholic. So, and you know this, Jenna, but for those out there, yes, a non-Catholic wrote about a nun because I'm curious, because I'm a seeker too, and I want to know about why these women, even today, are choosing that life, are choosing to seek out something that is so counterculture to our culture right now, and certainly counterculture to the 1960s, which is when Lori Lovely, I have her 1968, start to get into that. So all of that was definitely a journey for me. And so in that journey for me, it's all very meta, right? So in that journey for me to understand having it all, and then not, and thinking that will make you happy, and then getting there and you're not happy. The arrival fallacy, right? That's what I'm talking about here. And that, for those of you who may not be familiar with that term, it's a psychologist term. It's an actual medical term for when you set up boxes in your life, checklists, so of things that'll make you happy. And for some people, they're all different for every person. I mean, some of them are similar because they're on a larger sort of social level. So like being famous, being rich, being known, being adored. These are all sort of boxes. And on a more conservative, maybe more personal level, getting married, having kids, having a house, having a dog, having a car. You know, we check these boxes off and we say, when I get all these things that I have on my list, then I will be happy, and I will no longer be stressed, and I will no longer be yearning and have that aching need for something, because then it'll be fulfilled and then I'll be happy. And we do all that and we get all that and we're still not happy. And that's the arrival fallacy, is that you will never be happy if it's just about stuff and about boxes and about perception and about this outside sort of facade that you're building. in your life. And the only way to happiness then is to, and by the way, pause right here to say that all those things I just mentioned, they aren't bad things. They're great things. They're goals, and they're things that every person, it's almost like it's the American dream. You have a right to want those things. Those are good things. But if your whole life revolves around getting those, you will still feel unhappy and be unfulfilled. And so it has to be something deeper. It has to be something that has to do with your inner purpose and your inner drive. And so I think that that similar pattern is in that dual narrative. Like, I need it to not just be about the story, which is sort of here. It needs to be something that's reflective internally. And the way I get at that is by me going on the journey as the author. And then, like I said, very meta. And then that being part of the contemporary character, Lou's journey. And then Lou's journey being connected to then and reflected in Lori Lovely's historical journey. So it's very like, almost like checkers.
Spiritual checkers. I think readers are probably responding to that. There are a lot of comments in the chat about, oh, I love this book. I love this book so much. I love this book so much.
Oh my goodness. You know, I just had the comments off, everyone, and I just turned them on.
Your job is just to tell us about the book. We here at Blaze monitor the comments. I thank you, readers, for the comments, and I would love to hear in the comments what specifically you loved about the book, so we can share that with Sarah on screen. But I wonder, Sarah, like, for me, one of the hallmarks of a really good book is if I find myself remembering things about it when I'm in my daily life, like a week later, a month later, or a year later, whatever. And recently I found myself on a paddleboard with my friend Hillary in a lake in Maine. And I was saying to her that she just got married 2 years ago. And I said, if you had not found your husband, do you think you could have been content? Like, would you be content with your life? Because we're all writers and we're all striving and we're all, we have our goals, we have our marks we want to hit, And she was like, I don't know, I might feel like something was missing and then that would make me anxious and blah, blah, blah. And I was saying, I just had this great conversation with a guru about this, about how you have to find your contentment inside on a sort of daily, cellular level. It's almost like a Buddhist thing, but it's like a sort of being present thing. And where did I hear that? I was like, who was it who said that? And then I was like, oh my God, it was Sarah McCoy at our talk. And I'm like, it was in Lori Lovely, and it was a philosophy that Catholic, Buddhist, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, really stuck with me, so that I embroidered it into a conversation with a friend. Oh my God. Because we do have these marks. Like, I think about Sex in the City, like when we hit our marks, like we should have a house, we should have a husband, we should have kids. Why do we should all over ourselves is basically the point of that episode.
Oh, I love that. See, I want that on a t-shirt. Don't should all over yourself.
On a pillow. I'll like send it to you embroidered on a pillow. But really, the marks don't mean anything as much as being present in the moment. So I wanted you to know that your book made that psychological inroad and became part of my daily sort of Weltanschauung. Like, it's part of my philosophy now, really. So moving. So I wanted to ask you to tell readers who might not yet be in love with the book because they haven't read it yet, like how you achieved this sort of glamour of Hollywood with such verisimilitude, because it's so convincing. Like, Lori's rise to fame is one of these good old-fashioned, like, sort of like, she's not an orphan, but it has that sort of orphan plucked out of the gutter feeling, or like the Bruce Springsteen lifting the girl out of the audience and suddenly you have all this fame. There's that part of the book, and then there's the nunnery, and both of them are equally real and equally pleasing. Like, the Hollywood stuff, as you would imagine, is glamorous and fun and kind of candy colored and also has a dark underbelly. Like, it's just delicious to eat. And then there's the nunnery, which made me feel like I was being wrapped up in a warm lavender scented blanket. So can you talk a little bit about how you created both scenarios so realistically?
I think now, I love you so much. You are so like, I swear you are my like soul, like twin. You're the vanilla to my chocolate. You really are, my love.
I love vanilla.
So you just brought out something that I hadn't really thought about, but it's so true, that I hadn't consciously thought to do it, but I wanted to do it now that I think about it, now that you made me think about it, is that I wanted to put out there that Hollywood and a nunnery, they are equal. Like, you can be in either place and be equally changing the world for good, equally righteous in the eyes of heaven. You don't have to be a nun. You can be in Hollywood. You don't have to be in Hollywood. Like, Hollywood is not evil or righteous, and Abby is not evil or righteous. And I think that we tend to make these dichotomies, and we make it black or white, and it's not like that. It's like we're all, both have their amazing aspects of them, and also, like you said, both can be really delicious and wonderful to be in, and you don't have to say one is better than the other, is my point. But I wanted to do justice to both of them. I wanted readers to feel like, oh, I love this, but I also love this. And again, that counterbalance of things, I am obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with saying, here's good and here's bad, and you actually, you don't have to pick one. There, it's like gray. Everything is sort of a gray. But to answer your question specifically, I went to all these places. I have to go. You know me, I am a very sensorial writer. I need to be there and feel it, and then write all those things down so a reader can be there and feel it too. So I went to LA, and I walked the beach of Malibu. At the end of the book, there's a specific pathway that is walked, and I needed to do that to make sure a person could do that, and also just to feel the salt in the air and the wind and the waves, to hear them and to feel the vibration of the sea crashing around me. I needed all of that. And so, and then LA is just LA. It's flashy. It's fun. It's Hollywood. It's all the things we dream of. So I think of LA almost like the Wizard of Oz, like the yellow brick road. Is just technicolor and so much fun. And so that's how I feel like I was able to capture that. And then I went to the Abbey. I went up to the Abbey of Regina Latis in Connecticut, and walked that, and listened to the quiet, and to the singing, and to the nuns, and to the bells tolling, and the birds outside, and that quiet, sort of restful lullaby of a place that is grounded there. So that's how I captured them. Could I have done it without actually going? I could have tried.
No, no, I mean, you could, because you wrote Mystique during the pandemic, right? And you were not able to go anywhere. Of course you could, but it's not as fun. Also, you were in Italy. Am I right? I mean, the book is set in Italy. Laurie goes to Italy to film part of Romeo and Juliet, and then she makes another film there afterwards, if I'm remembering correctly. And so it isn't just Hollywood, it's also the glamour of Italy. And I felt like I was living those scenes so happily alongside her. And also,
I love Italy. I love it over there. So Rome, yes, there are many big portions set in Rome, which was fantastic to go visit. Of course,
it's a delicious book. You should read it. Also, I think another part of the deliciousness for me, and also the faint pang of envy, like a bell tolling of envy, was like being in a 20-year-old's body, because young Laurie, when she's cast as Juliet, has a co-star who is based on Elvis Presley. I don't think I'm like doing a spoiler in any way.
Wesley, I think
Wesley is a little bit like, who could that be? But they're so young, and their youth, their sort of sumptuous youth, and the uncertainty of youth, but also just the fresh sap of it, plays such a big role in this book. And you kind of put me back in that body, and so that was also kind of a travel. In a way, it was like a time travel. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how Laurie's youth influences some of her decisions.
Well, I think that we live, particularly now, in a time and culture that we hold our youth up to these unrealistic plateaus of grandeur. Like, we just love our youth and we think the world of them. And then the minute they start getting old, then we move on to another youth. But we've been doing that for, all throughout history, is that we celebrate that opening of the bud, right? The flower opens, and the moment that it opens, we're like, it's so beautiful, and then the minute that rose starts to fade, then we're like, oh, the rose is fading. And yet that we're all gonna, that happens to all of us. That is the inevitable, that's life. And so I feel like I was calling attention to the fact that if we celebrate that bud opening and then fail to celebrate the whole lifespan of our flowering and our blossoming as people and our souls, then we've really done a disservice to generations, to ourselves, to, it's just, it needs to be more than that. And so I'm glad that I captured that youth, but I also wanted it to be like, the point of it is, what now? What next, right? So what do you do after that moment? And that's what this book is inspired by. 3 young actresses who had this happen to them. They were catapulted to our heights of fame very young, 18, 19, 20. And then we said, okay, so what's next for you? And a lot of them had no answers, and they went looking for an inward purpose then. And that's then, what Lori Lovely does too.
I mean, despite all the dermal filler, youth is fleeting, y'all. I think about this now as we are going into fall, and how beautiful it is when things wither and die. Like, that's what fall is there to teach us, with all the fall colors are so beautiful, right? And it can be beautiful to let things go, and beautiful for things to get older and to sort of cave into their natural entropy. But there's a purpose to everything. And so can you talk a little bit about the abbey and the salty nuns? I love the salty nuns. Like, the nuns surprised me, and like my only experience with nuns is from The Sound of Music, because I, like Sarah, am not Catholic. I was raised by an agnostic Jewish man and a mother who called herself a recovering Lutheran. And I dated lots of Catholic guys who all had sort of guilty consciences about dating me, but I've
just one over than me. I didn't even date any Catholic men. I don't even think I didn't have any experience. But that's,
girl.
So let me circle back and explain to people who might not know why I didn't just go to the Abbey just to see an Abbey. One of my inspirations for Lori Lovely is an actress named Dolores Hart. And I was introduced to Dolores Hart through a sexy night on the couch watching Turner Classic Movies Channel, and they showed the movie Where the Boys Are, and that stars her. And when she came on the screen, and I've told you this, Jenna, because she kind of looks like Jenna a little. She's got blonde hair, and she is a very, very sensual, and she has blue eyes, and they're just sparkling. And when I saw her, I could not look away, and I loved the movie. And she plays a very progressive modern woman named Merritt, who is just everything feminist of the time. And so I loved the movie, and I'd never seen her before. I'd never seen the movie. And at the end, I was so taken. And the host came on and said, this is Dolores Hart, starring Dolores Hart, who was Elvis's first on-screen kiss. And there were rumors that they had had a romantic relationship. Soon after making this movie in 1960, she left Hollywood altogether and joined a Benedictine abbey in Connecticut. So I went down a rabbit hole, and I got chills, and I was like, oh my gosh, how could this be possible? She just played this incredible character, and she seemed so progressive and forward. How could she have made this choice to do this at 20 something, and Elvis, what? How could she, what? And so I started Googling and was up way too late, like till 1:30 in the morning that night, Googling, finding out information. And I didn't think it was a book. I just was fascinated by her. And then 2 weeks went by. I could not stop thinking about her. And I think I told you this, Jenna, that implanted in my psyche is my mother. She's always there. Hi, Mom. If you're watching, I love you. She's always there, right back here. And so growing up, she instilled in me that if I was having sort of a Sarah type A perfectionist OCD moment of not being able to get a thought or a person or something out of my head. And I've always suffered from insomnia because of that. I mean, it just literally rolls over and over and over in my head. And she would say, pray about the person, pray for the person, let it go, put it out there into the universe, let it go. Like almost like sending it up to heaven, whatever it is, just pray about it and then go to sleep. And it always worked. As a kid, it always worked. And so I, in this moment, was having these OCDs sort of like, Dolores, how could she, how? And so I decided, kind of in similar fashion, only different, to write her a fan letter. Right? So I sat down and I wrote a letter, and I wrote her, thank you for your art, because you and I both know that if we left public and faded away somewhere tomorrow, that we both would pray to God that our books would continue on with other people and for generations, and that people would still be reading them and influenced by them. So that's what I said to her. I said, thank you for your art. Thank you for making this film. I know you've been behind Cloistered Abbey walls for decades, but I want you to know that you're not forgotten. And it was 2016 is when that happened. And I said, you made this in 1960, it's 2016, and I'm still deeply influenced by this character that you played. So thank you. Sent it off to the Abbey, to the address I found online. So it was just like the Abbey doors. And she wrote me back. And she said, thank you for writing me. I haven't heard from any fans in a long time, and it means so much. And bottom line was, her last line was, write me back and tell me what I can pray for you. Oh, sweet. And so I took her up on that, and we started writing each other, and it became now a decade-long pen pal relationship. And more than that, as you know, Jenna, I've told you, she has influenced me in so many ways that I wasn't expecting, and so many beautiful ways, and made me think about the world in a different way, and made me really evaluate my own stereotypes about spirituality, and about, because we all have a spirit, we all think nuns, for people who aren't familiar, they're either terrified of them, they're bad, the stereotype, the bad nun who's like hitting you with a ruler, or they're making them the Virgin Mary, and they're like so pure that they're basically not real people. They're not women, they're angels in garb or something. And again, kind of like what I talked about earlier in this program, is that it's not black or white. They're not one or the other. They're not the virgin saint or the evil witch. We're all just women. We're all just human. We're all just people just trying to get by. And so that pen pal relationship, that's what that taught me, is that she was just a woman, and she was the same. She was the exact same Dolores Hart that I saw on film. She's the same woman now at 86. Same. It's not like a different person. She is just wiser now and older, and she has bloomed past that budness that we talked about earlier. And now she is an even more richer, more glamorous, more glimmering and golden woman at 86 than she was then in spirit, because that's what she illuminates for me. It's from the inside out. It's not just about here anymore. And so she taught me all those things, and all those things were the relationship that I had with Dolores Hart. It was not a book. It wasn't a book until 3 years ago, after Mystique Island. I knew I needed to write something new. And I thought, oh my gosh, what an incredible choice. I'm inspired by Dolores Hart's choice to leave Hollywood and this celebrity that everyone is after these days. Everyone on TikTok wants 1 million followers, and we all want that light shining on us. But she was in the light. She was in it, bathed in it. And she chose to leave that spotlight and completely focus on being the light instead of receiving the light. I found that fascinating. So so Lori Lovely is absolutely inspired by that choice of hers, but all the rest is other actresses, 2 other actresses specifically, and then also fiction. So that's why I went to the Abbey. I went to the Abbey not just to really get a sense of the Abbey, but I went to meet Mother Dolores for the first time. That was really what brought me, and more so to meet her and to tell her, I'm thinking about writing this book at the time. I need your blessing. Everyone at HarperCollins, all my publishers said, the lawyers said, you don't need her to approve. It's fiction. You don't need that. And I said, no, you don't understand. I need it, because this is a relationship I've had for 7 years before I started thinking of it as a book. And I need her to know, I need her to tell me, go do this. And she did. She, once I was so shaken. Even now I get chills, because I was so nervous. And I was sweating, and it takes a lot to make me sweat. Let me tell you, I'm not an easy sweater. I was sweating, and my knees were shaking. And I said, I'm thinking about writing a book inspired by your decision, but it's not you. Please don't think it's you. It is not. And I need you. I need to know what you think. And she said, honey, I lived my life. Go write your book. And that was her blessing, that she already put her story down in her memoir, The Ear of the Heart. So shout out to that book. It's called The Ear of the Heart, and it's a memoir written by Mother Dolores Hart. And you can go by right now and read it and hear her exact story of her spiritual journey. And it's beautiful. And so she said she had done that. And she said, go write your book, which was her giving me permission to write the fiction. And so that's what I did.
I love that. And Anissa said, hi, Anissa, we're always so happy to see you here. Your heart needed her to say, go do this. And to mix religious metaphors or religious beliefs in some way, it would have been such bad karma to write. It's bad karma to write about anybody living without their permission, I personally feel, but especially somebody who is so intensely spiritual. So I have many more questions about this, but we also have audience questions that I saw coming in about Dolores Hart and about other aspects of the book. And I'm wondering if our wonderful producer, Karen, can pop some of those up on the screen for us. Anissa said, was this the original title? And if not, what was it? What a great question. I love it. And the title is so unusual because it has punctuation in it. It's so rare to have a title with a question mark, a comma. I'm thinking about sweet, comma, soft, comma, plenty rhythm, which is a Laura Worrell book I loved. And I think this is the only other book I've seen that has the question mark. So tell us about the title.
Well, first off, shout out to Anissa and her incredible book club, because I love you all and you are faithful. And that's something I need to say, because book clubs who are faithful are everything. And I know, Jenna, you agree with this, that the ones who show up time after time, and not just show up, but they cheerlead and they go online and they go on the review sites on Goodreads, on Amazon, and they give all the stars. I can't even tell you how important that is to us and how
Where
much.
is clapping to keep Tinkerbell alive? Like without you guys clapping and doing
Yes,
that, Tinkerbell dies. So thank you for keeping us alive.
Tinkerbell dies. And it's like a bug squashed. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Anissa. I adore you and I love you. And I'm just so grateful to have you in my life. So that's that. So to your question, my dear, the original title, and Jenna, you know this, and Jenna's one of my best friends for years now. I mean, more than friends, like chosen sister for sure. And we share a lot, like too much, like TMI stuff, guys. And I don't talk about my books even with Jenna, and she knows.
That's true. She doesn't tell me jack. It's true.
I don't, and it's because I keep them very close until I almost like I don't want to disappoint people.
Like you're cupping it to your heart.
Yes. And I'm scared. And so for a long point of this is that for a long time, I give all my books that I'm working on code names. And so for a long time, I think even with you, Jenna, I just called it the Nun Book.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Nun Book. So what are you working on? The Nun Book. And mostly too, that was for those people who are close enough to be your friends in your like community, but aren't really like know you. It was more for them. So that way I would say, oh, they would say, what are you writing now? And I'd say, oh, it's a nun book. And they would immediately back off. They wouldn't ask any more questions. Because again, that's kind of not that cool. You know, like they were like, oh, a book about nuns? What?
Right. Like they hear like no sex book is what they're hearing when you say the nun book.
Yeah. And just to warn everyone, that's not this book.
It's not. So in case you're reading this book expecting total chastity, bummer for you.
You cannot have Wesley or Lucas Wesley, Elvis Presley in a book and then not have some bomb chicka wah wah going on. Like you gotta. So but yeah, so for a long time I just called it the Nun Book. Even with my editor and my agent, it was just the Nun Book. So I guess that was the title. And then it was Whatever Happened to Lori Lovely. I loved the question mark. I wanted something unique and different. I wanted it to be a book that's a question, like that readers want to answer. Another thing that this brought up, Anissa, thank you, is that I also want to tell readers out there that I am not trying to trick anyone. This is not a thriller. Like I've had so many people who say, oh, I figured it out in the first like 10 pages. And I'm like, good. I don't know what you think you figured out, and I actually asked two different, I won't mention who, when they told me that on book tour, I said, what do you think the twist was? They said, I figured out the twist from the beginning. I said, oh, really? What do you think the twist was? And both of them had totally different answers what they thought the twist was. And that's the thing. This is not a thriller. I'm not trying to like surprise anyone. I'm not trying to trick anybody. I'm not trying to I want people to figure it out. I am leaving clues, hoping that they'll figure it out. Example, what Lucas Wesley is Elvis Presley. Yeah. Okay. So I'm leading you on in this, and that at the end, I don't want it to be about a surprise twist. I want it to be about the relationships. And I want the readers to say, oh yeah, I figured out the twist, but it wasn't about that. It wasn't about this, it was about the relationships between the characters and what they went through leading up to the twists. And then through the twists, even more important, and how they changed based on how life twists us, because it always does, and how the ending then reflects back on the beginning. That's the twist that I'm most concerned about, the relational twists. So again, this is historical fiction, guys. This isn't thriller, which, by the way, let's all plug my dear sister here, Jenna Blum's Murder Your Darlings is a thriller, though.
Thank you.
And so we will all be excited to read that and be surprised by that. But that wasn't my goal. This is historical fiction. So I just want to put it out there to everyone. Figure it out. I encourage you. I encourage you to think it's something and then stop and go Google a whole bunch of historical facts, or look in the back of the book and look at the further reading and entertainment that I've listed for you in the back, and get to know these actresses and get to know their work and their art. And yeah, figure things out from the beginning. It'll make the reading even more enriching. That's all it's going to do. So that's my little PSA.
And yet, I will point out, and then we have time for one more question. I will point out that there is a surprise plot moment at the end of the book that I did not see coming. And so those of you who like a little bit of mystery with your historical fiction, which I do think kind of pulls the reader through in a way, even more than if it's straight historical fiction, you will all be very satisfied. Okay, Karen, we have time for one more question, I think, for our beloved Sarah. Who is the hardest character to write and why? What a great question. Oh, thank you, Anissa. Anissa saying nice things about my scary thriller coming in January. Thank you. Okay, who is the hardest character to write and why?
Who is the hardest character to write? You know, I don't, none of these characters were that difficult. There, you know, there is a manager in this who's kind of a foil and kind of a bad dude. And that he was based on, another shout out to one of the actresses, again, not trying to trick anyone, who inspired this story, is Olivia Hussey, who was the 1968 actress who played Juliet in the 1968 version of Romeo and Juliet. And she has a wonderful book called The Girl on the Balcony. That's her memoir. Please go read that. Again, celebrating these young actresses and their lives is really that's my goal, and to honor them in their art. So Olivia Hussey had someone in her life who was a stalker and abusive, and that was really difficult to read for her. I ached for her. I hurt for her, and that mental anguish that she went through having this person just pursue her in a not a good way. So that was difficult to write, that character. But again, it wasn't through the I perspective of him. He was more a character in the storyline. But again, a difficult thing.
The villain is the hardest. That's so funny because I love my villains the most. I love writing the villains, especially from within, because they do all the things that I would never do as a fairly upright person.
Well, also it's different. Yours is different, and this is more of someone, I think, who particularly very Me Too. You know what I mean? Like, and that touches, that's something that for me personally is something I've experienced, and I'm sure you have. And so it touched something in me that was hurt still, maybe that's still raw from my own, to have this person, this man, abuse a woman and her not be able to do anything because she's so young and she just wants to make it in this world and she just wants to be something. And so that really was difficult for me to write, but important though, because I think it lets other women see that this happens and we need to put it out there, and we need to come together and we can grow. And that's what Lori Lovely does, is she overcomes. So
there's a lot of voltage in that part of the book too. So you get glamour, you get voltage, you get comfort, you get all the things in this book. It's so amazing. Everybody should go buy at least 5 copies of Whatever Happened to Lori Lovely. Give them to your friends, hoard some for yourself. But it will make you so happy. I promise you, if you buy this book, it will make you so happy. So, Sarah, thank you for coming on, making me so happy. It's always a joy to see you.
Me happy. I adore you and I love you. And I can't wait for your book in January. That's going to be fantastic. And thank you all for having me. And thank you for reading Whatever Happened to Lori Lovely. And love you all.
Nothing better we could hear. Okay, Blazers, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend with lots of good reading in it. We love you. Bye.
Bye-bye.